comes down to your energy, your metabolism, your blood sugar, your mood, inflammation, your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, the ability to just feel safe and feel comfortable in your body. But a lot of the times, unfortunately, women are just told, go on birth control, just lose weight, just try harder. And you start asking yourself, what am I doing wrong? But the truth is, you were trying to solve a full body condition through what they saw as a very small lens. Welcome back to PCOS Unfiltered, where we ditch the one-size-fits-all advice. I'm your host, Lindsie, nurse turned health coach, author of Healing Beyond the Diagnosis, and mindful eating advocate. Here, I help you understand the messages behind your symptoms. Now, before we get started, I wanted to let you all know that I'm looking for 10 ladies to help me uplevel my offerings so I can better serve you and get you the results that you desire. Be sure to check the show notes for the link to book a quick call with me and to grab your freebie. As always, the content shared on PCOS Unfiltered is for informational and educational purposes only. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests are not intended to serve as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare professional before making any changes to your diet, exercise, or treatment plan. The information shared is based on personal experience and expert interviews and is not a substitute for professional medical guidance. Now, settle in, maybe grab a pen and paper so you can take some notes, and let's dive in. Hello, welcome back. And it is just me today because I felt like this was an episode that needed to come out as soon as possible. So we are talking about this name change from PCOS to PMOS. Some of you may or may not have heard at this point, but yes, polycystic ovary syndrome has officially been renamed to PMOS, or polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. I feel like it doesn't flow as well, but it definitely represents what is happening. So you might be thinking, why does this matter? So stick with me. This is not just a name change. This is validation for everything that women in this community have been feeling for probably a long time and have probably been told even to ignore or been dismissed, when it comes to this, their symptoms and everything going on. Some of it may not have made sense before, but I think with this name change, we're starting to see that the medical community is starting to understand it better. So, polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, as it was formerly known, it was incomplete, basically, when you think about it. Anymore, I think, way back when, you did technically need ovarian cysts to be diagnosed. But over the last several years, that has not been part of the picture. You can have two of the other three criteria. So ovarian cyst being one of the criteria, high androgen levels or high testosterone in particular, leading to like facial hair, acne, that type of thing, and infrequent periods, so particularly 8 or less per month. Those are kind of your like three criteria. You only need 2 out of those 3 to be diagnosed. So for a while now, we've known you don't need the cysts to actually be diagnosed. And even when women are diagnosed, a lot of times they're not true cysts, they're more immature follicles. So, I mean, we've been working with a name that doesn't even accurately describe what is happening in the body. And this means it narrowed the conversation down to your ovaries. So I've had a few guests recently. I have more to come, and they talk about their stories and how, they didn't have the typical presentation of cysts, and so they were dismissed and misdiagnosed, for years sometimes. Because when you think about it, it seems like when you're talking about just the ovaries, it becomes more of just a reproductive issue, a fertility issue, something around your period. But again, what I'm seeing more and more, just in people I talk to, my clients, And this may sound familiar with you. It's a much, much bigger issue than that, right? It comes down to your energy, your metabolism, your blood sugar, your mood, inflammation, your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, the ability to just feel safe and feel comfortable in your body. But a lot of the times, unfortunately, women are just told, go on birth control, just lose weight, just try harder. You need to willpower through it. And then, of course, that doesn't work. And you start asking yourself, what am I doing wrong? But the truth is, you are trying to solve a full body condition through what they saw as a very small lens. So I do want to take a minute to actually read something from my book. My book is called Healing Beyond the Diagnosis: Rewrite Your PCOS Story to Finally Reclaim Your Health. If you're watching on video, here it is. But this is actually something that I talk about, and I feel like, so I've seen it, of course, when I was doing the research for this book. That's why I included it in here, because we are seeing that it's more of a metabolic, endocrine issue. So right off the bat, chapter 1, I want to read a few things. So the very first sentence: the diagnosis of polycystic ovary syndrome, or PCOS, typically comes with a list of symptoms and a collection of medications, but rarely with an explanation of why your body is behaving this way. You may be one of many women who leave their appointment with prescriptions for birth control, metformin, or spironolactone, along with vague advice about weight loss and exercise. So let me know if that sounds familiar. But then the next section, so the first kind of real section of the book, of chapter 1, I do go into this talk about insulin resistance. So PCOS most often begins with insulin resistance, a condition where the cells throughout your body gradually become less responsive to insulin, which is the hormone responsible for moving glucose from your bloodstream into your cells for energy. And this isn't just a theory. Research consistently identifies insulin resistance as the central driver in up to 70% of PCOS cases, even among lean individuals. So again, like, this is something that's, been in the works for a while. So when this resistance develops, your pancreas compensates by producing increasingly higher amounts of insulin to maintain normal blood glucose levels. This excess insulin creates a cascade of problems throughout multiple body systems. The elevated insulin levels signal your ovaries by directly stimulating ovarian theca cells to produce excessive amounts of testosterone and other androgens, which are hormones that women naturally produce, but in smaller quantities than men. And this androgen excess disrupts the delicate balance needed for regular ovulation, leading to irregular or absent menstrual periods. The high testosterone levels also contribute to unwanted hair growth on the face and body, male pattern hair loss, and persistent acne that often doesn't respond well to typical treatments. Simultaneously, the excess insulin promotes fat storage, particularly around the midsection, where adipose tissue becomes metabolically active. This abdominal fat doesn't just sit passively either. It functions as the endocrine organ, producing inflammatory compounds called cytokines. And these inflammatory molecules further worsen insulin resistance and hormone imbalances, creating a self-perpetuating cycle that becomes increasingly difficult to break without targeted intervention. The metabolic chaos extends far beyond these visible changes. When cells can't efficiently utilize glucose for energy, despite having abundant glucose available in the bloodstream, the result is persistent fatigue that no amount of rest seems to resolve. And then the brain interprets this cellular energy storage shortage as potential starvation and triggers intense cravings for quick burning carbs and sugars that provide temporary relief, but ultimately worsen the underlying insulin resistance. These blood sugar fluctuations directly impact brain chemistry and emotional regulation. And when glucose levels spike rapidly after eating refined carbs, then crash just as dramatically a few hours later, the body releases stress hormones. And this includes cortisol and adrenaline to mobilize stored glucose and maintain blood sugar stability. These hormonal surges create feelings of anxiety, irritability, panic, and intense hunger that can feel overwhelming and unpredictable. So you can see like this kind of brings it full circle, right? The pattern. So a lot of times there is a stress component, and that can affect insulin resistance as well. And then that affects your reproductive hormones, but then it also just keeps going after that. Um, so the same metabolic dysfunction that drives physical symptoms often disrupts neurotransmitter production and function, and insulin resistance interferes with the brain's ability to produce and utilize serotonin effectively, which is the neurotransmitter primarily responsible for mood regulation, sleep quality, and feelings of well-being. Chronic inflammation further compounds these neurochemical imbalances by interfering with dopamine pathways that control motivation, pleasure responses, and executive function. This explains why many women with PCOS describe feeling like they're losing their minds along with their health. So the cognitive symptoms, brain fog, memory problems, difficulty concentrating, and emotional instability aren't separate psychological issues requiring additional medications. They're direct consequences of the same metabolic function creating the physical symptoms. So, I mean, that kind of gives you a better understanding, but again, I think that's, why the name changed. Like that's kind of it right there. I also talk about insulin resistance in my very, very first episodes, 1, 2, and 3. I have like a 3-part series. So feel free to check those out. I can link those in the show notes as well. But yeah, it plays a role, I think, in so many cases of PCOS. So let's break this new name down a little bit more. So PMOS, again, Polyendocrine Metabolic Ovarian Syndrome. Um, Polyendocrine means multiple hormone systems are involved. So not just your ovaries. So we are talking here about insulin is a hormone, cortisol, you have thyroid hormones, and then of course your reproductive hormones. This is a communication network inside your body. So if one of those is off, of course, it can affect everything else. The metabolic piece of this new name, this is a big one, right? So this acknowledges that insulin resistance, blood sugar regulation, and how your body processes energy are central to what is going on. Not secondary, not optional. This is foundational. Yeah, I mean, I've talked about insulin levels before. Again, if you go back to my first few episodes where I do break down insulin resistance, maybe this might help in getting doctors to order more fasting insulin levels, because that really should be considered kind of the pre-diabetes instead of looking at the A1C and the glucose, because those can compensate for so long while insulin levels can spike before, it's too late. So this might help in diagnosing, insulin resistance early, and even like that like I said, kind of that pre-diabetic stage early as well. And then yes, there is the ovarian part still to the name. But now it's just one piece of the puzzle. It's not the whole picture. We're not focused on the ovarian piece of that name. So when you zoom out and look at this as PMOS instead of PCOS, what you start to see is that it's not a willpower problem. It's not just a discipline problem. This is full body. This is the whole body needs to communicate effectively and run smoothly to to make everything work together, so you don't have an exacerbation of symptoms. And when anything is out of whack, you're going to feel it. Here's why this matters so much. Language shapes how we understand things, and how we understand things shapes how we treat them. So when the condition was framed, especially around ovaries, particularly around ovaries, treatment stayed very surface level, right? So again, this might be where we start to see more insulin levels being ordered and being evaluated. It came down to a lot of times birth control, weight loss, and then just symptom management, right? We'll just, manage your PCOS. But when you start to recognize this as more of a metabolic and endocrine disorder or condition, everything shifts. So now we're going to start asking questions, we as in the medical community, but I think something I've been asking even for a while. I know when I talk to my clients, I ask, do you have a baseline blood sugar, nervous system? Oh my gosh, how many times do we talk about the nervous system on this show? And trust me, I still have more episodes to come. It's not going to go away, but we need to talk about how your nervous system is functioning. what kind of stress is your body under? What are those patterns that you have adapted to over time? And how do we break that cycle? So this is the conversation I think that many women have been longing to have for years. Um, and again, this is where I hear women say, I feel like I'm doing everything right and it's still not working. And for the first time, I think this medical language is actually starting to catch up to that experience that so many women have. So let's bring this back to you. If you've been on this journey, maybe you've tried, the diets, the workouts, the supplements, the medications. And if you've gotten to know me over these episodes for a while now, I'm approaching a year. Um, you probably know that that is not my focus. There's so many things out there targeted specifically for PCOS or now PMOS. Um, but but there's so much more going on in the background. So, that particular workout that maybe worked for some person with or without PCOS may not work for you, for the next person. There's supplements out there. It might work for a little while, but again, then it might be that you just go back to feeling the way you were and you just continue feeling stuck. So I want you to hear this clearly. It is not because you're not trying hard enough. Um, you were just never given the full picture. And healing is not just about what you eat and the supplements you take and the workouts you do, or even just the medications that you're given. It's about how your body is responding to stress, how safe your nervous system feels. That theme comes up so often. How your blood sugar is regulated and what your body has also learned over time. This is where things like emotional eating, stress eating, the cravings, the fatigue, it all starts to make sense. And just know that it's not a flaw. These are signals, these are messages that your body has been sending for years. But when you're not given the complete picture and you rely on the medical community, they're not seeing the complete picture. They're failing. They've been failing you. So your body is always communicating. And I think this is going to empower, you as a patient, to start asking better questions and asking the right questions and just opening your eyes to what is actually happening in your body. So, I want to also ground this for you, as we kind of start wrapping up. Just because the name is changing, it doesn't mean that everything is changing overnight. So my podcast is still going to be PCOS Unfiltered, at least for now. You might still hear doctors refer to it as PCOS. I'm planning on making sure that I use those interchangeably for a little while, because there still might be some women out there that have not heard this and they're still going to hear PCOS. But yeah, it's not going to happen. It's going to take a little bit for the medical community to kind of really, really grasp this new idea of what, PCOS actually is. The diagnosis criteria also has not fully shifted yet, which also means treatment protocols may still take time to catch up. So that also might mean, hey, here's your metformin, here's the next medication. Okay, here's my advice. You need to lose some weight. It might take a little while for some of that to catch up. But again, now this is putting the power back in your hands. And I want you to know that. Again, that's something else I talk about in my book. We could do a whole nother episode on that. But you have the power, and the control over your treatment plan. And so now I think with this name change, maybe more women are going to get curious about what is actually happening in their body so they can start asking the right questions when they go to their providers, and maybe even just start exploring some of those alternative therapies, as well. Like I've talked about several on the podcast. So just because the system is slow to change, it does not mean that your awareness has to be, and it doesn't mean that your healing has to wait, of course. And even I've said it before too, yes, you have all these symptoms. A lot of the times we know what's wrong. We know something's wrong. And unfortunately, oh, you don't have cysts, or your hormones are normal, your blood glucose is normal. And so they just say, oh, we'll keep an eye on it. But with or without the diagnosis, if something is wrong, if something is off, and if something is happening in your body. So just know that your body is not broken. It's been responding. It's been communicating to you. And unfortunately, that was through a lens, basically, that was not fully understood. So this shift from PCOS to PMOS, I think it's just the beginning of something new. It's the acknowledgement of what's been true all along. Again, that your body is not working against you. It's working for you. You just need the right lens to see it. If this episode resonated with you, I want you to share it with another woman who needs to hear it. Because this conversation, it's long overdue. And if you're ready to go deeper into understanding your body, not just managing symptoms, this is exactly the work I do inside my programs. We stop guessing, we stop forcing, and we actually start listening. Thank you for being here today, and I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you on the next episode of PCOS Unfiltered. Nourish, Heal, Thrive.